This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 37. Today's episode is sponsored by Nicole Burgess, Empowerment Mentor. She helps the high-achieving, introverted, and sensitive female entrepreneur end the overwhelm and stressed out cycle, create more balance between her work and personal life, so she can have deeper connections not only with her partner, her children, but herself. To sign up for my free online workshop on the 5-step strategy my clients use to end overwhelm, get rid of guilt, and increase connection to their partner as a high-achieving and highly sensitive woman, go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/end overwhelm. Now here is today's episode. Just a heads up, ladies, there is definitely some background noise this time that I couldn't edit out. We've got some sirens in the background and all the lovely ambiance that sometimes happens during recording of a podcast conversation. Hope you enjoy. Well, welcome, sisters. I am so excited about this conversation today. My guest is Heather Dominick, and she is a woman who is impressively successful and highly spiritual. She is a former high school drama teacher who collaborated with none other than the Bette Midler. She's a graduate of New York University, where she received her first coach training. Heather is the winner of the 2015 Best of Manhattan Coaching Award and creator of the 2014 Stevie Award, winning the virtual event, A Course in Business Miracle, a 21-day discovery series that attracted close to 6,000 official registrants from all around the world, including Iceland, Nigeria, Russia, Asia, South America, Australia, Europe, and the US. She has appeared on Lifetime Television and has been published in numerous books, including Stepping Stones to Success, alongside Deepak Chopra. She is an exceptional facilitator and teacher, and she's known for creating a safe, sacred community for true transformation, whether she's teaching a business miracle class or delivering training online or in person or mentoring members of her Business Miracles community in her various mentoring programs. She has helped thousands of HSEs release lifelong limiting beliefs, overcome fears, and learn how to build their business in a way that actually feels so good that they can't help but create solid, sustainable, high-level financial success. Heather is also the founder and leader of the highly sensitive entrepreneur movement since 2010. Heather, I am so excited to have you on today. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I would love it if you would tell the ladies who are listening today, what got you into this? I mean, I definitely love the niche that you're in, and I know quite a few of my listeners are definitely HSPs. So what really got you into this type of work?
Yes. So, I would say there's two parts. First of all, I've been self-employed for 15 years. And my first business was as a nutrition and wellness coach. And I would say probably what really led me into that business, I can say in hindsight, I don't think I could have said at the time, was absolutely 9/11. I live in Manhattan, and I have for over 20 years. And at the time of 9/11, I was just barely a mile from ground zero. And everything obviously it had such an impact on all of us, no matter where we were. But for those of us in the city, it really changed everything. Everything about daily life changed. And again, I don't think I could have consciously said it at the time, but I started to really think about things differently and what I was doing. And though I loved my high school teaching job, I loved my students so much, and I loved the work that I did. I was very suffocated within that system. And so I think it was really, this idea of like, wow, there truly is impermanence. And if you're going to make a change, now's the time to make it. And that's, really, again, what brought me into being self-employed in the first place, although I knew nothing. I will totally say that probably like post-traumatic stress and ignorance were totally on my side for first starting out. And then that led to, part two, which actually maybe there's three parts. So part two was I had gotten that nutrition and wellness coaching business off the ground within about 9 months' time, which really truly was an absolute miracle. And, a big part of that was that I took the little bit of savings that I had and I took a quarter of that right away and I invested it in a coaching program. Mm-hmm. And also I really turned to my spiritual practice of being a student of A Course in Miracles. Mm-hmm. I turned to that practice to really help me manage the absolute terror that I was experiencing. And because of that, I kind of just organically developed like this spiritual approach to marketing and selling. And after I was in the nutrition and wellness business for about maybe like 2 or 3 years, other wellness practitioners started asking me like what I was doing to be in business full time. I know it kind of sounds crazy now, like 15 years later, but at that time, being a wellness practitioner full time was very, very unique and rare. Mm-hmm. So I started just, more again, organically supporting and coaching other wellness practitioners. And that led to the second phase of my business, which was, teaching spiritual marketing approaches to other women entrepreneurs. And then that led to part 3. And so I was about 5 years into business and I had brought my business across the $1 million mark for the first time. And it was, I will have to say, a pretty miserable experience. I was absolutely overwhelmed. I was extremely overworked and I was overexhausted. I didn't understand what was happening, but I really started questioning everything, including like, was this really what I was meant to be doing? And as a result of that, I can definitely say, again, in hindsight, I went into a very dark night of the soul. I withdrew from everything. I wasn't working with a coach or mentor at that time. I unplugged from, any type of podcast, teleclass, webinars. I just really only continued to pour my love into the clients that I was working with at the time. And it was that dark night of the soul that led me to Dr. Elaine Aron. And Dr. Elaine Aron is the founding researcher of the highly sensitive person. And at that time, I hadn't heard that phrase before. Once I learned what it meant, it didn't surprise me so much that I was highly sensitive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what really surprised me was how highly sensitive I was. I was like off the charts, highly sensitive in regards to, some of her assessments. Mm-hmm. And because I've always been a believer that your ideal client is a version of you, that's really one of my foundational principle teachings. I took one of Dr. Aron's assessments into a group of 25 women entrepreneurs who I was working with in person at the time, had them all take the assessment, and lo and behold, every single woman in that room was highly sensitive. And now, again, that didn't surprise me so much because I really, really do believe that your ideal client is a version of you. But what surprised me there was that not one single woman in that room wanted to be highly sensitive.
Yes.
They really saw it as a detriment. They saw it as a weakness. They saw it as a negative label. And that's when I thought, okay, something really important is happening here, because if those of us who are highly sensitive, that not only are we very talented in terms of our coaching skills or our healing skills or our creative skills. But literally, that's what we're coded to do if we're highly sensitive. So we really need a different approach to marketing, to selling, to operations, to all aspects of being in business. And that is what really started the movement. And I've been doing my own research and developing my own great body of work for highly sensitive entrepreneurs ever since.
Sweet. And I had to totally agree with you on when other women I've worked with find out, it's like, oh yeah, I'm highly sensitive. Like, no, Nicole, that's not true. Nope. They're trying to deny it because there's still a lot of stigma, I think, within our society, right? That if you have these different traits that, as you said, it's like it's perceived as a weakness when in reality it is such a strength. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And as we all embrace our differences, that's what makes the world a beautiful place. It's not about it's somehow we're weird or we're odd. It's like, no, we all have these beautiful differences. And that's what makes the world, the beautiful place that it is due to those differences and strengths. So I love that.
Yeah, well, for sure.
I'm curious, how did you, I get that you really leaned in on the Course in Miracles for your own personal journey, definitely through that dark night of the soul, as you were talking about, due to that overwhelm and everything that was going on. What first got you even into the Course of Miracles? What kind of led you to that? Which then again, we'll dive a little deeper into how you blend that into your work with clients.
Yes, that's a great question. Well, actually, I've been a student of the course since I was about 15 years old. And that was really as a result of my mother passing when I was 14, which I'm sure all who are listening can imagine. That's very, very difficult, for a young girl. Mm-hmm. And that was just one of the ways that I, began to try to manage that. And it's really something that my father, handed to me and was like, here, do this, which was, again, one of many, but definitely supportive and, a real companion, if you will, through a lot of difficulty in terms of just growing up, after that type of traumatic loss. And so where that dovetails into the work that I do now with highly sensitive entrepreneurs is at that time when I was making that discovery with those 25 initial women, I thought, oh, okay. So again, we really need to do things differently. And according to I guess I'll say first for anyone who's not sure that A Course in Miracles is not a dogma. It's not a religion. It's just really a spiritual and psychological curriculum. And according to that curriculum of the course, the definition of a miracle is a shift in perception. And I thought to myself, that is totally what's needed for those of us who are highly sensitive. We must experience a shift in perception in terms of, first and foremost, how we look at ourselves and what, again, that means to be highly sensitive. We must create a shift in perception about just what it means to be in business in general. And then we must create a shift in perception in regards to the day-to-day of the marketing and the selling and, again, the operations. And we just must be willing to look at all of it differently if we are going to succeed for those of us who are highly sensitive and called to be self-employed. And so I was like, well, then that's the definition of a business miracle. And that was where A Course in Business Miracles was born.
Oh, beautiful. And what a gift from your dad. He sounds like he really saw how you were hurting and to offer up, here's the Course in Miracles to help with some of that along the journey.
Yeah, for sure. And he himself, had been a student of the course before then and really, does use it to support him, with his own difficulties, anxiety, sense of loss, etc.
Yeah. Well, I
Mhm.
know, so I'm going to kind of to go back to that, but I just wanted to reflect that, like, wow, that's incredible that your dad is like, hey, here you go at such a young age after, like you said, a very traumatic loss, being 14 years old and no longer having your mom there. That's definitely a pivotal moment in life.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
you have on your website, I know you talk about, can you be highly successful in business and highly spiritual at the same time? When what we're talking about, um, I think part of being an HSP, right? Many have the spiritual component or drive already in them. And so your question is there a direct relationship between your spirituality and your great success? Could you share a little bit more about that? Like, as you've been working with your clients over all these years, and even in your own personal journey as an entrepreneur, what have you found as kind of this correlation, or what have you seen kind of unfold as you've gone through this journey?
Yes, absolutely. Such a beautiful question. Well, I would say, first of all, that, through my work with highly sensitive entrepreneurs, I've developed and discovered, along with, of course, the foundational work of Dr. Aaron, what I refer to as 12 top HSE shadows and 12 top HSE strengths. And understanding these shadow tendencies for those of us who are highly sensitive entrepreneurs, and then also understanding the strengths that we have available to us is really, really pivotal in terms of shifting the way that we approach everything. Again, back to that perspective, because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, okay, like we need to do things differently, or, again, like, difference is really important. And it's a whole nother ball of wax to actually live it on a daily basis. And it really requires a massive retraining. And that is so much of the mentoring work that I do. And, what we offer in the Business Miracles mentoring programs, it is a retraining. So it's both a learning how to have a different internal perspective, and then it's about having or being willing from that shift in internal perspective to take different external actions within the business. So, all to say that one of our HSE strengths is that we are spiritual by nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, then it becomes about, well, how do you directly use that HSE strength within your business to support you in the business and the whole process of being in business to flow that much more smoothly, that much more easily. And again, I think because when I first started off in business, I was accustomed to turning to my spirituality in regards to difficulty within my life, that it just became almost a natural thing for me to do when I was so, again, absolutely, completely terrified in those first years of business. But for many, our sense of spirituality as a highly sensitive is often compartmentalized.
Mm-hmm.
And it's compartmentalized, one, because overall, culturally, it's not acceptable to bring any sense of spirituality into practical aspects such as business. But two, again, we've learned unconsciously as highly sensitives to compartmentalize much of our existence. And so that decompartmentalizing is part of the retraining that's so, so necessary in order to create HSE financial success.
I love that. And Cinder just nodding my head, during that whole time. And I love that untraining of the compartmentalization, because there is so much of that. And when we come from this place of abundance and embracing these strengths, then you show up fully. And I know that I work often with the women about really embracing those strengths versus trying to hide it and conform to what our old, whether it's a society belief or a world belief or a family belief, it's being able to say, yeah, I don't need to hold that myself if it doesn't fit. So
Yes,
I love the unlearning.
yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, Heather, are there certain themes, like whether when you first started out or whether you continue to see, are there certain themes that come up or struggles, I'll say, or themes of struggles for the HSEs that come into your mentoring programs where they're, I don't know, maybe the top things that they really struggle with, whether they're beginning a business or they're thinking of being an entrepreneur? Do you see kind of any top specific issues?
Absolutely. 100%. So I would say that probably one of the top issues, and let me say first that we definitely in the Business Miracles mentoring programs serve a wide array of entrepreneurs. So first of all, there's the categories of an HSE who's just starting out in business. And I always say they're the lucky ones, if they find me right from the get-go.
Yes.
We also have the category of those who have tried anything and everything, have been in a lot of mismatched programs, and really feel like they're at their wits' end and they're about ready to give up. And yet they still feel this strong call that they're meant to be self-employed. And then they find their way, to Business Miracles. Or there's the third category, which is the HSE who has built a very, very successful business and has just discovered that he or she is highly sensitive and suddenly realizes, oh my gosh, I really have to start to understand what this is, or else this successful business that I've built is not going to, continue to grow and to thrive. Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect. And then there's all different types of service-based businesses that we serve, everything from coaches to creatives to real estate brokers to dentists, you name it. And so across that array, mm-hmm. I would say is that there is absolutely the theme, first and foremost, of not enough.
Yes.
That those of us who are highly sensitive developed an unconscious belief that we are not enough. And the way that I often teach to this is that this sense of not enough, and it tends to be, it resides differently within each HSE, meaning that some may have it buried deep inside, and it comes out, in their quote unquote worst moments. Mm-hmm. Others really are carrying it very, very close to their heart, and it completely impacts everything that they do or try to do. But the sense of not enough is really because, as I teach, that the world at large is designed for what I refer to as the other 80%.
Yes.
And I say the other 80% because Dr. Aaron's research has identified that there are 20% of us who are born into the world highly sensitive. And I emphasize that point is so important, that you are born into the world this way. And let me just take a moment, just in case there's anyone who's listening and is like, what are these women talking about when they say highly sensitive? So what that really means, according to Dr. Aaron's research, is that as a person who's highly sensitive, your nervous system is wired differently. And it's wired differently specifically in that you interpret stimulation and information at a much higher degree than someone who is not highly sensitive. So that could be anything from sounds to sight to, any type of smell to just an input of information. And if you don't learn how to manage how your nervous system processes stimulation and information, then that will lead you into those HSE shadows that I spoke about earlier. One of those top shadows being overwhelm, for example, which just makes sense because, again, if your system is interpreting input at a much higher level than someone who's not highly sensitive, that can be very overwhelming. So again, the rest of the world is designed for the other 80%. So there becomes this unconscious ingrained sense of not enough. And that is absolutely something that, again, requires that internal retraining and then an external approach, a different approach to how it is that you go about what you do. And then I would say that kind of dovetails into a second topic that I see across that array of HSEs that we serve in Business Miracles. Mm-hmm. And that is a sense of being a fraud. Yes. That no matter what you have done or haven't done, there's this constant impending fear of being found out and not wanting to be seen as different. And so then doing everything to try to not be seen as different. And that really is about the teaching that I've developed, which is our HSE coping mechanisms. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 primary coping mechanisms that we tend to as HSEs that, again, we've learned unconsciously. We developed them, I should say, probably even more than learned, just as a way to try to, again, be in this world without being found out as either, again, different or even worse, being found out as not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for those of you, if you want a little more information, you can go back and I'll put it in the show notes. But episode 9, I talk about the DOES acronym that Dr. Elaine Aron has created, which is exactly what you're talking about, Heather, regarding that stimulation piece of it and the nervous system and how it gets impacted. But I love, your top 2 things that you really discover with all the clients that you've worked with over the years, the not enoughness and definitely the being a fraud or the imposter syndrome. It's a key for so many women that I work with as well. And really so much unlearning of that, bringing that to the consciousness, like you're saying, so that you begin to become more aware of that and detach from those thoughts and those beliefs and then shifting it.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm curious, and I love really how you have so many different, I want to call them tiers regarding your mentoring that you do, because whether you're brand new or you've gone from various programs to programs, oh my gosh, they just don't get it, because many of them don't. They just don't understand the traits, and they don't understand how you really do build your business. There's similar steps, but it's how you go about it that is very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how other coaches or programs don't necessarily, embrace that piece of it. So I love how you've got those different things set up. You also do quite a bit of public speaking, if I understand that correctly, too. Am I right on that?
Not so much anymore in terms of notes, but what we do within the mentoring programs all include the in-person training retreats that I host. So there's one that we have in the spring and one in the fall for all members of the Business Miracles mentoring program, so the entire community. And that is primarily where my in-person teaching and training is taking place, as of now, at least.
As of now, yeah. Okay. And I love, again, I know one of the things that when I've talked to some other experts regarding the HSP field, it's so much about connecting with other HSPs. And I love how you bring that together within your mentoring as well. So people understand they're not alone and that they're not weird, and that these are beautiful strengths that they can tap into and create very sustainable businesses as well.
That's absolutely a key element. So I really say there's, 3 key elements to creating HSE financial success, and that's community, core practice, and consistency. And community is absolutely such a key piece. And it's interesting because it's also what a lot of HSEs will resist. Mm-hmm. And especially if you tend towards the coping mechanism of hiding, then I find that there's a lot of HSEs who will try to hide out in one-on-one mentoring. And not that there isn't the benefit to one-on-one, and one-on-one is definitely part of some of our programs, but it's really, 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 really important that you have practice being seen. And so I have a teaching that I refer to as V and V energy, which stands for visibility and vulnerability. And the willingness to be seen for who you really are, and a community of like-minded and like-aligned, highly sensitive entrepreneurs is absolutely the best place to practice so that you can then go out into the world of non-HSEs and feel more comfortable and confident in being seen. So that community piece is so, so key. And it's why, again, it's such a core element to all parts of the Business Miracles mentoring programs, regardless of how often HSEs, again, want to resist it.
And I'm just laughing because, yes, the one-on-one can definitely be a great stepping stone. But like you said, it's really coming into that community of other like-minded people to continue to grow and accept more of who you are versus hide from that. And again, that old thought process of there must be something wrong with me. It's like, oh no, there's everything right with you. And I love how you embrace that, not just only within the group programs that you do, but also when you have that community of live and in person, it's another chance of meeting those that you met online face to face as well. So that's lovely.
Oh yeah, it's so powerful, especially when we're in person together. And, we have HSEs who literally travel from around the world to attend these in-person training retreats, which is a big deal for those of us who are highly sensitive, right? To pack up your suitcase. And I always say, step out of your comfort cocoon, and pack up your snacky bags and go through security and, everything else that it takes to fly from Africa, Iceland, France, Germany, Hawaii, all the other places that HSEs will travel from to come to our in-person training retreats. But it's really because there's nothing like it happening anywhere else. There is that aspect of being with others, as you've said, who are like you, but, also I'm always delivering new teaching at my in-person training retreats, which is so, so important because, we absolutely have to just keep the growth of the movement going forward.
Absolutely. I think, this is a beautiful way as you're working with these entrepreneurs, right? And they are learning more about themselves, learning how to create truly a more sustainable business where they're not burning out and they're not constantly being overwhelmed, that it helps really change how other people who are the non-HSPs begin to see what these traits are and to see people who have these traits that it's all okay. So the more that we have, the changers out there in the world, it does help everybody all over. It's just a beautiful ripple effect of what is impacted. So I love that.
Absolutely. I so appreciate that you use the word sustainable because that's one of the things that I share all the time for those of us who are HSEs is that it's really important to be able to create sustainable success. And that's going to look different for each HSE and how it is that they're meant to serve through their business. And to me, that sustainability is so much more important, than quote unquote, 6 figures in 30 days and all the other, is that you see on the internet. But sustainability is so, so key.
Well, and you hit it from early on, even your own experience, right? Loving what you were doing, the business that you created, and yet you got so overwhelmed. And so that it doesn't make it sustainable. If your health isn't there, if you are unable to be present in your business, you don't have it. So
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's like, you've got to really, when you know you and you're not living from a place of avoidance or fear or the not enoughness piece, when you're like, no, this is what really works for me, that becomes more of the sustainability because you can show up more fully there every single day or whatever that looks like for your business. And your energy levels maintained. And then you really role model that with the people that you serve. That's the beautiful part, right? Is we get to mirror that back or have that mirrored back to us or we mirror it to others. And it becomes this lovely circular thing that goes on. And also what you said is continuing to grow and to change because change is inevitable. I mean, change is the constant. but it's embracing, like, does this work for me? Does it work for my business? And being able to then share that with your clientele as well.
Absolutely. Because when you're in that space, then you really are having the experience, not only being in your business, but living your life from your HSE strengths. And it's interesting because in my elite program, we put together something that I call the Diamond Plan, which is about, having a 6-month plan for the business every six months. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I teach is about each HSE determining like what their lead value is, whether that's time, energy, or money. And for a lot of HSEs, it's not money. And so when I was in that dark night of the soul, a big part of that was I was just working with a mismatched coach, and I didn't know any better at the time, but it was really about the consistent drive to make more. Mm-hmm. And, so I didn't realize, because again, I didn't understand or know that highly sensitive aspect of myself at the time, but that really had me in my coping mechanism, which is the coping mechanism of pushing. Mm-hmm. And I came to understand that it's not about the income, but it is about, as you said earlier, the way that I was going about generating that income. And so though I am, still a 7-figure business owner, I'm so much more peaceful because of the way that I've gone about creating it. But still, money is not my driving lead value either. So it really changes, again, that whole perspective, that whole perception about how you do what you do and create what you create changes everything.
Yeah. And I think, one of the main things that you're hitting on there too, it's when you're chasing after money, that to me, that's truly not the sustainable way of anything, right? But when you have that energy and you love what you are doing and you're out there serving, the money does come. I mean, it definitely follows. But
yes, for those of us who are highly sensitive, but I would say for some who are not highly sensitive, I could probably say that money is very much about their sustainability. That is what sustains them.
Yes.
And that was part of the problem, is that's all I saw around me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't care about this. It doesn't mean anything. This is driving me into the ground. I hate it. What am I going to do? My life has no purpose or meaning. That required, again, it was that dark night of the soul, and I had to really make a change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've laughed and I'm like, oh, that's a good reflection back. Because I think the majority of people that I am surrounded by, and then again, those that I serve, it's not about the money. It definitely comes, but it's more about the serving and loving what you're doing and wanting to be able to do that at your peak state every single day, versus from a very depleted state and just like, oh my gosh, is this all there is to life? And knowing it's like, oh no, you can have both, the enjoyment and the fulfillment from what you do and create and who you serve, and the money will follow and be there as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is the thing for most of us who are highly sensitive, is we don't believe that we can have both. And again, that goes back to because the majority of what's happening in business is not about that both and. Mm-hmm. It is the either or. Or it is, again, equates to an either or for those of us who are highly sensitive, right? Like I either work to make this money at a full sacrifice of self, or I can, have what I need to cope with my highly sensitive traits. And then I have to suffer and sacrifice in terms of what the world can provide for me. But the alternative is exactly what you're saying, is that you can have absolutely both. And the big key is that you have to be willing to have it look different than what it looks like for the other 80%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, Heather, I think go on and talk to you for many, many more hours, because I just love what you're doing. I love what you're putting out there, and the change that you are really helping our world go through where there's more and more HSEs out in the world. I love it, having sustainable businesses. So, yes. So I want to, is there anything else before we wrap up? Is there anything else you would like to add or that I forgot? We'll talk about how they can find you. And I know you've got some upcoming courses and stuff, or you've got some mentoring programs that are going on. We could talk about that. But is there anything else that I've missed that you wanted to share?
Well, I feel the same way. I think we could just probably just keep chatting, for a long, long time. But I would say probably the only piece, not that we missed it, but just is to reemphasize, that if you've been listening and you have a sense like, oh gosh, I think this is me, then I would say, just to be willing to embrace this part of yourself and to take the ride, to enter into this journey with eyes wide open and making the choice. Like I'm not willing to live my life or be in my business simply from a state of coping, but I'm ready to really step into what it means to be creating. And that as part of that, again, I'm going to do what it takes to be okay with that being different, because it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's different.
Beautiful. And ladies, I want to let you know, she has a quiz that you can take for free, and it's at www.h for high, S for sensitive, E for the entrepreneur, quiz.com. That's all one word, hsequiz.com. And then Heather's website is businessmiracles.com. Again, I'm going to have all of this on the show notes, and then all of her social media. She's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and she's also on LinkedIn. So you can go out to the show notes and find all her information as well and get connected with her. And then when you do that, you can go out to her website and see the different mentoring programs that she has available. And again, Heather, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, sharing your own personal journey of how you got to where you are today and the way that you work with other HSE entrepreneurs, how you help them out, and the impact that you're making in our world.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I so appreciate this time together and love what you're doing to cultivate a soul-filled sisterhood.
Thank you. If you are a professional woman, whether you're an entrepreneur in the corporate arena and you are ready to end the overwhelm and stressed out cycle so that you can have deeper connections not only with yourself but your loved ones, I encourage you to go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/apply for your free breakthrough call today.